The topic of ethics raises a lot of questions, and even if our moral values usually stick with what is ethically right, in cases of doubt, there are ethical codes that serve as guidelines on the philosophy of a certain company or institution, or how to act when carrying out a task at your job, or in this case, the philosophy of the UPF. For example, what do you know about the general UPF ethical code? What do you know about professional ethical codes? Do you consciously consider them when doing any design? These questions with apparent simple answer were asked in the very first day of the subject. Indeed, the UPF has a written ethical code that treats topics such as the philosophy of the university, but it also has many other protocols in which other topics are treated, like stating the UPF is working to be a more environmentally friendly university. Going back to the questions, the answers were pretty clear in that nobody really knew about the ethical codes, not even that of the university we are attending. Actually, the matter of ethics has no such thing as a black or white. For example, it is usually difficult to come to an agreement on what the statements should be in an ethical code. For instance, we interviewed Antoni Borro, who is currently developing a pledge for biomedical engineers, which is not a professional ethical code per se, but he shows the difficulties in this topic.
And in particular, what the difficulties that we faced, it was that we wanted to be short, okay, and we wanted at the same time to cover some aspects that we considered important, and so that was a challenge. And also we wanted to be very careful with the words, I mean, to the wording, so that we don't hinder research or we don't hinder any, let's say, major professional development of the biomedical engineers in that sense. So it's difficult. You have to. It's more difficult than what it feels at the beginning.
In order to understand what ethics implies in biomedical engineering, we shall start by stating the difference between morals and ethics. Morals are the codes of conduct of a society. Some examples of morals in our present society are telling the truth, paying one's debts, or honoring one's parents. Thus, morality encompasses what people believe to be right and good, and the reasons they give for it. Ethics, on the other hand, is the study of right and wrong, of good and evil in human conduct. Ethics is not concerned with providing any judgments or specific rules for human behavior, but rather with providing an objective analysis about what individuals ought to do. Defined in this way, it represents the philosophical view of morals. The rapidly growing complexity of technology in both engineering and medical biology suggests that ethical considerations are crucial to decision-making, and therefore to all areas of professional endeavor in biomedical engineering. In biomedical engineering, there is not an ethical code to which the engineers should make an oath, like in medicine. However, there are some rules of practice and professional obligations suggested by some biomedical engineering associations. For instance, we have that engineers shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public in the performance of their professional duties. Also, that engineers shall perform services only in areas of their competence, or that engineers are required complete objectivity and truthfulness in all professional reports, statements, or testimony. An example in which these rules of practice were not followed is the scandal of Elizabeth Holmes, which was the CEO of Theranos. What this woman did was to advertise more than 200 blood tests as being eligible for use, when in reality they were flawed. This led to patients being misdiagnosed, with everything from diabetes to cancer. Therefore, in this case, they were not holding paramount the safety and health of the public, nor were they being completely objective and truthful. Taking into account examples like this one, we are wondering what future ethical codes must include.
Well, one of them very important to me, or what I consider very important, is to be ensured that we don't cause fraud against the patients. So we don't basically, let's say, cheat the patients to get money from them. This is something that it's not in those codes, and it's a very important aspect for biomedical engineering. We can do devices, that seem to do something, and maybe we know that they are not doing anything at all. But when we are dealing with patients, we have to be careful in the sense that a lot of patients are desperate for a solution, so they may end up buying our device, even if our device doesn't do anything. So this is very important. Another aspect kind of related to that is to make sure that we are sustainable with our developments in what we do in terms of environment. Okay, so that we try not to waste a lot of materials, and we try to maximize a lot of the things that can be recycled, which is always problematic in biomedical engineering, because you want to be safe in terms of sterility and not contamination. So that's a lot of times this is, we use a lot of materials, disposable materials, and we produce a lot of waste that maybe we should think a little bit to avoid. And this is an issue. So that's one thing that we have to think a little bit of, like the society in general. Then the economic sustainability also of healthcare. Healthcare is increasing cost and cost and cost. We are putting more and more money into healthcare, and this in long term is not sustainable. This happens because society wants that. I mean, basically society always finds it's okay to put more money into healthcare, and so the politicians are happy to put more money in healthcare. I mean, the only limitation they have is that there are other things that always drag them, like education and things like that. But healthcare can explode in terms, so we have to be careful about that, and we have to, I think, contribute to avoid that happens. So be careful with the animal experimentation and trying to minimize animal experimentation. So animal experimentation is going to be here for quite a few times, but we have to minimize it as much as possible.
These are definitely important issues that us, biomedical engineers, should take into account when working on our field, as sticking to that philosophy will positively impact society. But what other aspects should we consider when working as biomedical engineers? If you have any new idea, please fill out the form and we'll be able to discuss them in the debate session.